What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on Off-Field Antics. We've been away for a while, but no better time to come back than for a World Cup. I am joined by Rod, and in today's video, we're going to be giving you our initial drafts for the World Cup fantasy mode and giving you our predictions for the World Cup. As I said, Rod is here. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. It's been a few weeks off, busy life, but we're
Yeah.
back, mate, for what's a interesting period of the season, which is the World Cup in the middle of a football season, which is the fun.
Yeah, 100%. And like you've been everywhere, mate. You've been Kenya. You've just been doing bits.
Yeah, mate. It's the busy life of Mr. International. I'm not in Qatar though, which is a shame. But
Yeah, I'm actually surprised this World Cup's going ahead, but it is. And first of all, I thought we'd look at the group stages, Roz. I think it's kind of interesting in fantasy terms because in terms of the groups, we've got eight groups, 32 teams, I believe, or is that wrong? But yeah, 8 groups, and I think each group is kind of set up a bit different. I think we have a couple groups with a couple big boys in, and it looks real difficult. But some groups where you've got a dominant force, and then you've got some mid-tier teams around it. And in terms of fantasy, it's kind of hard to decide whether you want to, if you want to dip into Group H, where you got a Portugal, Uruguay, and a Korean team, as well as Ghana, like that's a difficult group for me. Like I'm pretty certain that Portugal should finish first, but picking who's going to finish second and looking at the fantasy assets, it's quite difficult.
100%, mate. There are some groups where obviously stronger than others, and there's a mix of teams. Obviously, you just named Group H, which I think Ghana, Uruguay, and Korea are not far off each other. Portugal obviously are the outstanding team in that group, but got some internal problems. A few players, namely Ronaldo, who's doing what Ronaldo does. It makes it all about him. But yeah, mate, and hopefully, I'm hoping there will be a dark horse in this World Cup where a team we wouldn't predict to do very well does really well. Because I think you can't really compare this World Cup to any other World Cups. In the fact that I think there are going to be some wild cards.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm hoping one of them is going to be Wales. But I thought we should start with our fantasy teams, Rod. We'll get straight into yours, I believe. You sent it to me on Twitter, and here it is. Pickford in goal, Dumfries, Trippier, Rudiger, Hernandez, Perisic, Sane, Di Maria, Bergwijn, Neymar, Messi, Hassini, Myler, Trossard, and Azmoun. Just kind of give us your thoughts on your team overall and like how you kind of got to the point with this team.
So this is, I think I've only had really one or two looks at my team. It's kind of hard to predict who's going to do well. As obviously in the middle of the season, kind of want to pick players on form, and I've looked to do that, especially Trippier and Perisic. I think they're doing really well this year. Gone for two England defenders, mainly because obviously Southgate, we know, likes to utilise a very defensive approach. I think the games will be low scoring, as we've seen basically throughout all of the games under Southgate. And obviously Trippier on set pieces I think will be huge. Pickford tends to turn into Privlev Yashin when he goes to a tournament. And then obviously I like my fullbacks. Dumfries, he did have a little injury. Captaincy for some reason is on him. Obviously it won't be. I'll be looking at I'll have to look at who's got the best opening fixture first. But yeah, I think overall it's quite a balanced team. Pricing's quite interesting, but I was always going to have my main man Lionel Messi in there. I think he's going to have a fantastic tournament. I hope he does, and I hope he wins something. And looking at it, Pickford could be Emi Martinez.
Yeah, for me, looking at your side, I think it's very well balanced. I think off the bench, you've got some cheaper options, but they are like real solid options. I think Myler showed at the Euros last time what a superb player he was. I think in terms of the fullbacks in the tournament, I think him and Luke Shaw really stood out at Euros. Trossard as well is having a brilliant season. I really think he could have a big World Cup, depending on the form of someone like an Eden Hazard. Can he get in his spot? And for Azmoun, I think for Iran, right? He's one of the big hitters for them. I think they've called him the Iranian Messi or something like that for years now. But in terms of your team, like you said, the pricing is a bit difficult, I find, on this game mode, because I feel like the midfield is so different to Fantasy Premier League, where you have a lot of winger options. In this game, all the wingers seem to basically be forwards. You do have a couple that you probably can get, and like all your midfield are basically wide midfielders, like a Di Maria, a Sane, and a Perisic. I think Bergwijn probably the most attacking of those four, in my opinion, in terms of the Dutch setup. I've gone for something quite similar. Here's my squad right now. I haven't sent it to you, so I'm going to have to tell you it off the top of my head. My bad. I've got Danny Ward in goal as a base because, of course, he's the best goalkeeper in the tournament.
I believe, just to interrupt you, he's not even the starter for Wales, I believe.
I don't know, mate. It's kind of touch and go, right? Because you got Danny Ward, Wayne Hennessy. I'm not too sure who is going to be the starting goalkeeper out of those. And in all honesty, I think that, you know, you look at what we've seen in the Premier League, Danny Ward had a really shaky start. I'm just going to send you a picture of my team, Rod. There you go. But yeah, he had a real shaky start in terms of, you know, the Premier League season. But I feel like as the season's gone on, he has progressed a lot better. And I do think he could, you know, see a lot of action in the Welsh squad. I think he's the younger of the two out of Wayne Hennessy. It would be interesting to see starts. He isn't my main goalkeeper. He's just there because obviously they've got one of the opening games of the tournament. I've got Mailer, Shaw, and Dallow. With Denzel Dumfries. You made a good point about the Dumfries injury. But Dumfries is a quite important figure for the Dutch national side. I think he could be involved in quite a lot of action. For me, I think Dallow is someone I'm really interested in. I'm really interested to see where Portugal go with their back four. I think Guerrero could easily slot in at left back, so that could take one of Dallow's sort of spots. So I don't know if he's going to be a starter for sure. And that's kind of the same with Luke Shaw, right? Because it's an interesting one. We've seen Trippier play that left back, and if they decide to go with Trent, which I don't think I'm not too sure what's going to... You don't think they will? It's a hard one, right? Because Trippier could easily be benched for Trent and Shaw, so I'm not too sure where that goes. I would love Trippier there. I think he's been one of my best assets in FPL. Midfield, I've gone for De Bruyne, Paqueta, and Musiala. I just think it's a balance. I think Paqueta is someone who could get forward in that Brazilian midfield three. I'm kind of interested as well to see what they do because I think they've got a lot of options and a lot of spots in their squad which could definitely be improved. I think Musiala is going to have a real breakout tournament. He's been in fantastic form this year for Bayern. De Bruyne, we've seen what he's been doing. My front three, I've kind of gone off form and I guess pedigree. I've gone with Neymar just because I think he's going to be the leading man in this Brazil squad if they are to get somewhere in the tournament. Messi, his final World Cup, most likely. I just think he's going to ball out. And Cody Gakpo, who has been in tremendous form for PSV in the Netherlands, I believe he's probably going to be part of some sort of front three in the Dutch side, and I think they could do business. On my bench, I've got Ochoa. I just feel like he always seems to turn up at World Cups. I was checking the Mexico squad and, you know, how much he's been playing. He seems to still be their number one. I've gone with Nico Williams for the Welsh team. I just feel like if Wales are to get out the groups, they're going to have to get a couple clean sheets. I also think he's proven this year that he can be a good attacking threat. I've gone with Leandro Paredes as a cheap sort of midfield option. Yeah. Definitely booking potential there. But for 4.5 million, if he does get a clean sheet and a decent sort of points return, you can easily swap him in for someone like Paqueta. My other midfielder is Carlos Soler, who is, you know, playing quite often in the Spanish national side, currently playing with PSG as well. I just think he has that real nice sort of value, which he can come into the starting 11 if, you know, he picks up a good amount of points.
Yeah, you've got a few interesting wildcards in there. A few players which Musiala, Soler, to Paredes, I do quite like. He's quite a big player for Argentina. But it's an interesting team.
It was much more interesting a couple of days ago as well when I had a thief from Qatar on my bench and stuff like that. I have moved it a lot around just in order to kind of, you know, bring in a bit more of a balanced squad. I feel before I didn't have that balance, and I think in terms of this fantasy game mode, it's going to be important to have a bit more of a well-rounded team where you can bring players in off the bench because of the way it works, Rod.
100%. Obviously, the match days here are what the match weeks are in Fantasy Premier League, so it's going to be something to keep an eye on, and it's kind of a more some more intense fantasy football, whereas you've got to constantly be on it and potentially make changes, and obviously the chips are a bit different, so it's a bit of a change,
Yeah.
but it adds an extra element and an extra facet to the World Cup itself.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, like, I look at your squad and I see players that I go, oh, I kind of missed out on him. I would like him, but I just don't know where I'd be able to fit him in. Like, someone for me who I really like in your starting 11 right now is even Perisic. I think he's always seems to turn up at these international tournaments, always seems to be effective. And looking back at, it was the last World Cup, right, which Croatia got to the final. He was one of the key figures in there. I think Modric as well. Croatia have quite a few decent assets, but it's kind of finding who is going to probably be the third one alongside them who could, potentially push them into the later rounds of the tournament. I guess we should probably get into sort of our favourites and our beliefs around the tournament, Rob, because I think it is quite a competitive tournament, and I think what makes international football so interesting, especially in these tournaments, not necessarily the friendlies, but World Cup, is you have to play the cards of doubt. You can't go and sign a player if you're missing someone in a position, and with injuries, especially how this one's turned out, coming in midway through the season, lots of players are missing, and I think that affects a lot of the squads, Rod. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on who are your favourites. Is there a team that you think will surprise people and go further than expected? And is there a team you think are really just going to kind of bottom out and just shithouse it straight away, who are expected to go far?
In my work sweepstake, I've got three teams. The strongest of those three, Belgium. And I think we say this in almost every international tournament. We expect Belgium to go fairly far. That never is the case, but mainly due to that, I would like Belgium to go quite far. But a team who I think will surprise a few people, I think will be. I think it will be Germany, because Germany in recent years haven't been really as strong as you pictured them. The days of Cruz, Prime Muller, Mario Gomez, Prime Neuer,
Closer.
Closer, Miroslav. Yeah, those days are no longer. And I think Germany, I think they're going to put up a fight. I think they are going to do quite well, but I mainly want Belgium to do well. But if I was to give you a winner, I think it's going to be Argentina or Brazil, personally.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, honestly. I think you look at Brazil and Argentina, and I'd say I just think they've got something over the other competitors in the tournament this year. I do think they're my favourites as well. If I was to give it an edge, I'd actually probably go Brazil. I just feel like you look at their squad on a whole, and I think it's just the sort of players that they have. You look at defence, the experience and the leadership qualities, Casemiro anchoring things in that midfield. And going forward, they got a lot of attacking talent. And I think it's important to say that, like, even a Brazil squad, which has so much talent, is missing in, like, key areas. I think at fullback, they're a little bit aged now. You don't really have someone who's come through who could really, get that spot and make it theirs. I think they are still kind of washed. And I think that's going back to how Dani Alves is still in the squad. And I think up front, they have a lot of talent, especially on the wings. But if you look down the middle, it is kind of interesting, right? Because they don't have that number 9 who really stands out. And that's been happening now for a while with Brazil. I think it isn't too long ago we was talking about the days of Joe and Fred being up front. So they still have that problem, but I do like them as my favourites, I would say, for the tournament. I think Argentina is going to be one to look out for as well, because like you said, Messi's last tournament, I'm sure he's going to carry this team as much as he can, but you look at the talent he's got around him, the likes of Dybala, Lautaro Martinez, and in my opinion, I think Lisandro Martinez, his performances at United, I would play him in this Argentina side. I think Otamendi, if he was to get a start, I'd be a bit worried, but they still have Christian Romero as well, who's been a very solid centre-back for Spurs. Questions in goal, potentially. I'm not too sure he's going to start, but if it's Rulli, they're in big trouble.
It's Sammy Martinez, mate. He's not, after winning the Copa America, he's not losing his number 1 spot 100%.
I know, but he's been a bit edgy, hasn't he, recent weeks for Villa. But yeah,
Argentina, yeah.
I think Brazil, Argentina are my two favourites. In terms of a team that aren't expected to really go far, that could go far, I think I've got a couple in mind. Looking at Group H, I think Korea could definitely be one. I think it's going to be a real shootout to get out of the group. But I think whoever does get out of that group in second place has a decent chance. It could be Uruguay as well. But tell me I'm crazy, Rod. But if Wales can get out of this group, mate, they can go on a run.
I think a big point to note is the climate. I think the South American teams are going to find it far easier than the European teams, especially Wales. Because I
Nah,
think
we play in hot conditions all the time.
obviously the stadiums are air conditioned, but the temperature is going to be a big factor. But if I do look at Group B, obviously I do think England will win it comfortably. Actually, I like not comfortably. It's going to be a boring watch, but they will win the
Okay.
group. And I think it's Wales or USA really, but I would put my money on Wales. think um, I think they've got the credentials. I think they've got the morale, mentality. But what does worry me for a lot of these European teams is the temperature, and there are teams which I think will slightly have the edge over them, especially the African and Southern American teams.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, but I think you can kind of counter that point with the fact that a lot of these players play in Europe.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. But I'm more relating it to when they do play in the international tournaments. It is always usually within their own countries. That being obviously the Copa America, the Africa Cup of Nations, and as a team, they're together in those tournaments compared to when obviously they're playing as individuals in the domestic teams.
Yeah,
But there are a few teams which I think will surprise a few.
yeah.
I'm looking at Group C, and for me, it's Mexico or Poland finishing second. I think
I,
that's a bit of
I,
a
I
one.
think Mexico would be a team that could cause people problems, but I just think Poland, they don't really get the best out of Lewandowski, in my opinion. I think it's hard to say. In terms of a team that you think will just shit the bed, I've got to go with Portugal, man, because I feel like all this news around Ronaldo, it does seem like it's bad timing on his part. It does feel like something he could have done when he was out of the tournament. And just to drop it just before going into a tournament, it doesn't only affect his sort of relationship with United. It's it's going to affect his relationship with certain teammates he's got in the squad as well. And it does seem to put all the attention on him. I think they've got a squad which is worthy of being in that second sort of tier. I've got like a sort of tier list in my mind of top tier favourites would be the Argentina and Brazil. The tier below that, potentially a team like a Germany or Portugal. And I do feel they've got a squad in terms of quality which should be able to go on and challenge and get into the deep, later stages of this tournament. But I just have a feeling that there's a possibility, that they are going to try and shoehorn Ronaldo into the squad and everything's going to be about him and it's going to probably ruin their tournament.
No, that is what tends to happen with anything that revolves with Ronaldo and tends to make him by himself. Timing isn't great. You've seen a couple clips. Obviously, some are out of context with Cancelo and Bruno Fernandes, but anything can be taken out of context. But yeah, I think Portugal, the games against Ghana, Uruguay, and Korea, I think are going to be harder than a lot of people think. So that group is definitely going to be one to watch. But
Yeah.
I am also rather interested in the Group G. I think Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon, I would
Yeah.
say they're
Tight.
probably near around the same level.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd probably say Switzerland would be my favourite to get out of the group alongside Brazil. Just, you look at their quality, which they've kind of shown for years now, and their last performance at the Euros was pretty spectacular in terms of the way they knocked out France. But Serbia, with Vlahovic up top, I do see them causing problems. Cameroon.
Mitrovic.
Yeah, Mitrovic as well. They got some big boys in that team, and they've always kind of had that sort of, how would you say it, like shithousery, like hard sort of opponents who will leave one in and tackle. And for me, I feel like there's a player in fantasy who would be well a look in that Serbia team. I think Vlahovic at 8 million is brilliant, but Milinkovic-Savic, I think, has been a guy who has kind of always been linked with a Premier League move. And if you ever watch Serie A, he's someone who performs week in, week out. He's a true baller and could certainly carry the Serbia team forward. I think you make a good point about that group. It should be interesting. I think Cameroon, they always seem to get into a World Cup and not always have the biggest names, but they always seem to put in a performance. So that's always going to be hard. But for me, honestly, I kind of like all the groups. I don't think there's one group which is, super easy. I think even England's group, I do believe that they should top the group pretty with ease if they aren't Southgated. But I do think, you look at Wales, I think they do have the capabilities to give them problems sitting deep, hit him on the break with the pace that they have with Brennan Johnson and Dan James. USA definitely have some players in there. I know their coach has been under a lot of scrutiny for the way he kind of lines up his team. He doesn't really do it to the best of his players' abilities. I'm just super excited though now, Rod. I didn't think it was going to get there for me this year, but the closer this tournament is getting, I can't wait. And if I have to put my nose on the line, my winners is Brazil. And that's how I would end it, to be honest.
Obviously, I've got mixed feelings in regards to this tournament. Obviously, we know all the issues surrounding it, and obviously the timing of it, which is questionable. But I think it's going to be interesting in regards to the Premier League season. Teams have 6 weeks off now to prepare. How that will affect the Premier League season, and obviously it's a huge tournament in between. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, it's 3-4 games every day. But if I have to make a prediction, the winner and runner-up, I think winner's going to be Argentina. And obviously, I haven't seen the tree. I don't know who can face who.
Yeah, neither do I. But, it's going to be Wales, Argentina final. Crazy.
I think it's going to be... I just want all Belgium to get as far as they can. Yeah. Argentina, Belgium.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you for watching, guys. If you made it this far, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below with your favourites, as well as some sort of fantasy tips. If there's any bargain sort of buys out there which we haven't spotted, be sure to let us know in the comment section down below. We'll be back for game week 2. It might not be Rodion, it'll probably be me, but I want to get everyone of like our friend groups basically involved in this series. So until next time, I think game week 2 starts sometime next week, isn't it? So we'll see you then. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you later.